Hey everybody, Nate Carter here with today's Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. When I was in college, one of my mentors at my church said something really profound to me that's just stuck to me my whole life. And she said that when her faith came alive, the time that her faith really came alive was the time when she realized how the Old Testament and the New Testament fit together into one seamless story about who God is and about what our faith is all about. And I've just thought about that my entire life, and I think that one of the passages of Scripture that really helps bring the Old and New Testaments together into one seamless story is Romans 4. Let me read to you from Romans 4, beginning with verse 13. And this entire chapter is essentially a defense for why being made right with God it doesn't have to do with our obedience to the law, but rather has to do with our faith in God. So verse 13, clearly God's promise to give the whole earth to Abraham and his descendants was based not on his obedience to God's law, but on a right relationship with God that comes by faith. If God's promise is only for those who obey the law, then faith is not necessary and the promise is pointless. For the law only brings punishment on those who try to obey it. The only way to avoid breaking the law is to have no law to break. So the promise is received by faith. It is given as a free gift, and we are all certain to receive it, whether or not we live according to the law of Moses, if we have faith like Abraham's. For Abraham is the father of all who believe. That's what the Scriptures mean when God told him, I have made you the father of many nations. Gosh, I love this chapter. It seems to bring together both the Old and New Testament, and I've often tried to figure out how do we reconcile the law of the Old Testament with the grace that seems so prevalent in the New Testament, and how can those be the same God and the same promise? Well, it's shown here in what Paul is saying to the Romans about the faith of Abraham. It's never been about works. It's never been about obeying the law. It's always been about faith. Abraham trusted that God would make him the father of many nations, and he did this before he was circumcised. God credited that faith to Abraham as righteousness. And in other words, Abraham's faith was given the same kind of currency as if Abraham was righteous, as if he had never sinned, as if he had never broken the law. And more than that, since that faith occurred before Abraham was circumcised, before he was symbolically grafted into the family of Israel, that means that promise applies not just to the Jews, but also to non-Jews, which includes us. But later he was circumcised, which means that same promise also applies to the Jews. And in that, Abraham becomes the father of many nations, not just the Jews, but the Gentiles as well. And that faith, it gives us right standing with God. It shows that the law was never meant to make us righteous. Whether we're Jews or non-Jews, whether we lived in the Old Testament or we live in the New Covenant as we do now, it's been faith all along. So a couple things here. First of all, just that comment from the very beginning that my mentor made to me, it just reminds me how significant a comment from an older believer can be to a younger believer. And I've spent my whole life looking for the ways that the Old Testament and the New Testament are tied together because of that one comment that probably didn't even seem important at the time. So look for opportunities to bless the next generation with your faith. But then after that, take some time today to just sit in silence and think about the grace that you have received through faith, and that is not by works. So we can't boast, but just sit and thank God for the fact that we don't have to obey every letter of the law in order to be made right by Him. It's only by grace, and that is through faith, and that's what our God offers to us. So be encouraged by that today, and we'll see you next time on the next Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional.